Wow, this is a moment you need your parents to see, and I'm not sure the tent is blocking from the Gan Eden, but I think it isn't. And I was so happy to hear some rain. In our country, it's a sign of goodness, of blessing. I'm very excited, moved, and grateful to be here. My dear friend, thank you. My dear friend, Chancellor Arnie Eisen, Board Chair Abby Joseph Cohen, Provost Alan Cooper, fellow honorees, Rabbi David Ellenson, former Governor of the Bank of Israel, Professor Stanley Fisher, and my favorite author, the greatest of contemporary Jewish writers. I would leave aside Jewish in my eyes, Mr. Philip Roth. Dear graduates of all 5 schools, you're all there? Members of the faculty, you're here. And board and dear family and families and friends. I feel a little bit in the best Purim party of the Jewish world. I've never had such a costume. Thank you. I'll start with the Shvach Achsania, JTS. The Jewish Theological Seminary has a significant place in my life. I came here several times through my life. Each time I arrived with a little more maturity and with greater understanding. On each visit, I was exposed to the special color of this institute, its unique way of learning, and the conservative movement. Today, it feels like coming home. I feel a bit at home. I understand the language, some of the signals and signs. I pretty much know what to wear, how and what to say, whether I should be fashionably late or professionally early. There is a special mixture of American and Israeli Judaisms here, of academia and yeshiva, of home-like intimacy and academic excellence. The first few times I was here, I came as an observer, trying to figure out if the local people here are friends or not. Then, during the 3 years I lived in New Jersey, in Livingston, feeling like one of your characters. Every time I got off South Orange train, I was looking, maybe he's coming with his girlfriend now to his parents. And during the 3 years I lived in New Jersey, the library of the seminar was a place I used to run away to, my study place. I'd wake up with the working masses commuting to the city, standing with them on the train platform with a cup of coffee in my hand. It's like being in an American movie. From Penn Station, I would take the subway, and I walked with a bag full of heavy books banging into my leg. I would pray a secular prayer filled with self-persuasion that one day I will manage to finish the PhD. The journey towards a PhD at the Talmud department in Jerusalem, and David knows this very well, and maybe all doctoral journeys are long and filled with self-doubt. There are always thoughts I had thoughts such as, maybe my research question is not good enough, maybe the research is not thorough enough, or the conclusions may not be a novelty. The journey eventually came to an end. I must say, I don't know if it will ever end without Professor Jeffrey Rubinstein from here. I don't know if he's here today, but please tell him a big thank you. And Ismail Shosh that let me study here and feel at home, and even get my own carrel, which was my little place in New York. The journey eventually came to an end, and I earned my PhD. I already had an experience of establishing the first egalitarian Bet Midrash, Elul, followed by 17 years of work at Alma, in Home for Hebrew Culture in Tel Aviv. After that, I went to work for the National Library in Jerusalem, and from there, in many ways to my surprise, I found myself in the Knesset, and here I am today, deeply honored by your generous gesture. As I changed and evolved from visit to visit, I also witnessed JTS develop, renew, and enrich itself constantly. And an artistic sensibility was added to the academic solemnity, I don't know how to say that, solemnity, something like that. And it has, and it has the strength to connect people and texts in a significant way, which enriches the place with contemporary relevance. Over a year ago, I moved to a new workplace, the Knesset, but I feel I still work, as always, for the same boss and for the same goals. It's the boss. The Knesset is largely a realization of, in my eyes, of rabbinic culture. The legislation is the pinnacle of research, deliberation, and controversy. The difference between the parliament and the Bet Midrash is that at the end of the day, at the end of the process, there is an actual law. I mean, it's quite frightening, actually. It is sometimes difficult to see through all the daily parliamentary work. I watched on the plane here for the first time House of Cards, and I got a bit worried. But with some perspective, it is easier to remember that the goal is to create a Jewish civil public space, one with flavor and character. Israel is a country where ethnic and religious identities are not private matters, occurring behind closed doors, but a joint enterprise of the different communities living in it. My dream is to create a public sphere which enables a rich Jewish life, also for those who do not find their place in a synagogue. This dream is being built, among other things, through legislation, such as the Civil Union Bill, who I have the honor of working on together with the colleagues from Yesh Atid, through national projects such as the Sabbatical Year Project enabling Shnat Shmita, which is coming next year, enabling financial rehabilitation and debt settlements for families with economic difficulties. It is a project where we try to bring the families to pay a third of the debt without interest, ask the bank or whoever they owe money to give up a third or more of the debt, and the people of Israel, in Israel and abroad, will fundraise to let them get out of being in debt. And through free public education, which teaches our children the ethos of Jewish people who were slaves, left Egypt, and are ever since learning how hard it is to be free. I've been thinking, what does a chancellor of a rabbinic seminary, my favorite rabbi, David Ellenson, head of a movement, and, oh, I'm sorry, the first one was Arnie. Where are you? Arnie? A head of a movement, that's my favorite, David. An economist, who we are hoping will one day be our president. But actually, I would have any of you as our president. It would be, there's still a month to go. 10 signatures, and I thought that an English-speaking president would be a good benefit for Israel. An economist, a writer, and not so young but a beginning politician. What do we have in common? And it seems to me that we are all facing expectations from ourselves and others to always know what to say, to have the ability to articulate great moments, emotions, to be able to tell a story when a situation is unclear, to tell a story when people want to be part of something significant and do not know how to find the words. As leaders, the goal is to tell a good, seductive story and yet speak the truth, to stay close to the experience, to not let the words get so sophisticated and to fall in love with them that overlap or cover the meaning, to look at the listener, to be attentive, to select words which will bring you closer to where they are. I wish to give you, for graduation, a gift, a present of a good story from the Bible, about a character from the Talmud, Rabbi Ishmael Cohen Gadol, that I believe a piece of him exists in every one of us. And through this story, we'll try to enlighten to the mystery of the right thing to say and to try to understand our moment together here today. So thank you for borrowing the Talmud from JTS. I'll bring it back to the library in the end. I'm in Bavli Brachot, Daf Zayin Amud Aleph, and the story is told by Rabbi Ishmael Cohen Gadol. I'll read the Hebrew, then we'll study it again in English. Tanya, you may know the music to this, there's a song. Tanya אמר רבי ישמעאל בן אלישע, פעם אחת נכנסתי להקטיר קטורת לפני ולפנים, וראיתי הקטריאל, יה, אדוני צבאות, שהוא יושב על כיסא רם ונישא, ואמר לי, ישמעאל בני, ברכני. אמרתי לו, יהי רצון מלפניך, שיכבשו רחמך את כעסך, ויגולו רחמך על מידותיך, ותתנהג עם בניך במידת הרחמים, ותיכנס להם לפנים משורת הדין. ונענה לי בראשו. וכמה שמלן שלא תהא ברכת הדיוט קלה בעיניך. I love it that the stories are so short. I'll read the English now. Rabbi Ishmael ben Elisha said, once I entered the Holy of Holies. Of course, he is the high priest, and the day is the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, which is the only day, and he's the only person who is allowed to go in the inner of inner to the holiness, to stand in the nuclear of the temple. And he goes in to burn incense in the innermost sanctum. To burn incense is part of the choreography that a high priest had to know by heart and recite all night, not sleeping and not eating, and he's barefoot and he's all alone. The temple is completely abandoned. Everyone is outside. The people of Israel are waiting outside to see if everything goes well. It will be a sign of blessing. And he has to do the jobs of everyone, all the staff of the temple that day, all by himself, and that it includes slaughtering a bull, among other things. And this is a moment where he goes to the innermost place, closest to holiness. Now, the Holy of Holies, what's in it? Remember, Second Temple class? What's in? There's nothing. It's empty because Luchot HaBrit that were there in the first temple are now gone to Rome or wherever. And so there's emptiness, and he has to go inside, but there is the presence of God, and there's no evidence of anyone seeing anything in there, and it's quite frightening to go in to this emptiness, to bring the incense and go out. And suddenly he says to us, so he goes in, and I saw. And who does he see? Katriel, Ya Adonai Tzavaot. It's a name that exists only once in the Talmud, and it seems to be God, and he's sitting on a high and lofty throne of compassion. Now, this was not expected. You know, if you read the Bible, that you're not supposed to meet God, and if you do meet God, it's not going to end well for you. It's not the regulations. And suddenly he goes in, doing his own business, and he sees Katriel, Yad Adonai Tzavaot, sitting on this high throne, and what is he supposed to do now? I mean, there's no... What's the right thing to say? And not only does he see God, but God speaks to him, and he says, Ishmael says, he said to me, Ishmael, my son, bless me. First of all, he knows his first name. And he's breaking it's an intimate moment when somebody calls you by your first name and calls you my son. Ishmael, my son, give me a blessing. I'm sitting here all alone, God, in the temple, Yom Kippur. Nobody came, nothing to eat. Nobody talks to me, and I'm so lonely. And now this is not written in the Talmud, please excuse me. But I feel, how will I say it if this is streamed? It's going to be dangerous in the Knesset later. But the character of God, I'm not saying anything about God, but the character of God in this story needs a good word, is lonely, is empty in some way in that moment. And he sees this man coming in, says, Ishmael, my son, say something, give me a good word, give me a blessing, give me some energy, some koach. And Rabbi Ishmael is stuck there. Now, what are you going to say to God? What are you going to bless God? Ad 120? From strength to strength. What can you say? What blessing does God need from a person? So he's standing there, and then he had this blessing of an insight, and he says to him, May it be your will. Yehi ratzon milefanecha. Usually we say, may it be your will for things we want. But now when we bless him, we say, may it be your will that your mercy conquer your anger. It's a very interesting blessing that every parent knows before supper. When you tell yourself, this time, I'm not going to be upset, whatever they do. They eat it, they don't eat it. I'm going to be a good mother. And then, and it's interesting, the meditation that he's giving him a blessing of meditation. May it be your will, because you can come from this side or from there. May you have the I don't know exactly what it is, what would you say? The compassion, the strength to come from the side of compassion, because we do have both sides, and so does the character of God in this story. May it be your will that your mercy conquer your anger, that your mercy overcome your sterner attributes, that you behave towards your children, which is us, with the attribute of mercy. Don't be just with us. Be a good father. And that for their sake, you go beyond the boundary of judgment. We can't live, and children can't live, and friends can't live, and loved ones can't live with justice. We need a little bonus to go by. And then God, he nodded to me with his head. God says, thank you. I think that's what he says. He's like saying, Sachten. And the Talmud now says, what does this come to teach us? It teaches us never to underestimate the blessing offered by an ordinary person. In my simple words, if you come out of a Leonard Cohen concert or a Philip Roth meeting, and you think he's not interested in my blessing, I mean, he knows he's good, you're wrong. He does, or she does. Even God does sometimes need a good word from a human being. So far, the Talmud tale. And here are some of my thoughts. Usually, the learning that emerges from this story is the words of the Talmud, She'al tehe birkat hediot kala be'enecha. That you don't think that a blessing by a simple person is not important in your eyes. In this story, we see that even God feels abundant sometimes. Even he needs a good word. God turns to the high priest, using his first name and the term my son, and in so doing, he transfers the conversation between them to a personal and intimate moment. I wish to emphasize another aspect. The story of Ishmael ben Elisha describes great loneliness in isolation, not only for God, but for him also. A combination of fear, worry, responsibility, and a feeling of facing a void. This feeling, I believe, is the essence of leadership, the test of a leader. This loneliness and responsibility to understand a situation, to know what we are facing, to find the right words with humility and courage, these are all common to my fellow honorees, as well as to any of you who is going to be a new rabbi, a new cantor, an educator, wherever you go. Much like Rabbi Ishmael, we have often found ourselves facing a complicated situation or a claim that seems so great that we felt it exceeds our abilities. Blessed be he or she who does not run away from it, stay in the moment, remain human, never get the illusion that a certain position makes us grand. Find the right words and express your feelings honestly. The Mishnah knows אם שגורה תפילתו בפיו מקובל, ואם לא שגורה תפילתו בפיו אינו מקובל, knows the feeling, and the wise person who says it already knows while things are said if they are accepted and understood. The sense of the words flowing through me on their own, as if all I needed to do was just to allow their way out, is a gracious and sweet feeling. I congratulate the graduates today, those graduates getting their BAs, those in the graduate school of Jewish studies, don't worry, the PhD will come. Those in the Jewish education graduate school, those in the cantorial school, and those graduating rabbinical school. May you all experience the feeling of leaders, and when asked to give a speech, remember to breathe for a moment, glass of water, leave aside the fear, but keep your humility, be attentive, listen, and read the listener's eyes. Meet the depth of their needs. Put yourself aside and enlighten the listener to the best of your ability. I'm sure they will nod back at you. Before I say Mazal Tov and Todah, I want to say that I see as part of my mission in the Knesset to be your voice in the Israeli society and in Israeli Knesset. I hope you will see me as your representative, and let me try and help if there's anything we can do to make you feel a proud shareholder in the great project of building a homeland for Jews in Eretz Israel. Mazal Tov, and thank you very much.